Kenji UEHARA is the ultimate high school level priest, which sounds absolutely wild. He's from the game Danganronpa Another, which is a popular fan game of the Danganronpa series. And trust me, the popularity is deserved, because these games are amazing, the story building is amazing, and the characters are, well, amazing. However, the ultimate priest has always stuck out to me, and I think it's because I was raised Catholic myself, though I've since then distanced myself from the church. I don't know if it's like some weird kind of representation for me, or if it's just somebody that I can push my religious trauma onto, but either way, Kenji has always been my favorite character from the Danganronpa Another series. When you first meet Kenji, he introduces himself and lets you know that he is the ultimate priest, but he is very adamant on not forcing his religion on other people despite his strong faith. One of the first questions he asks you is when the last time you've been to a Catholic Mass is, but he doesn't chastise your character for saying they've never been to one, or it's been a very long time. He just accepts your differences and quickly moves on. While this is a very based position for a priest, he has also been seen as very off-putting, mysterious, and different when it comes to talking to other people. Kind of like if Byakuya Togami wasn't a complete jerk and also a priest. I don't know why I can't stop slandering that man, but I swear he's not my least favorite character in the series. Anyway, he keeps his introduction pretty short, and he tells you what he's all about, and then he just kind of wanders off and minds his own business, unfazed by the whole interaction. Now I'm going to talk about Kenji's free time events, which really give a lot of context on the kind of character he is. In the first event, he isn't interested in talking very much and is confused by the concept of a friendly chat, but he promises to tell you his life story later because you asked him, and you can already see he takes his words very seriously. It was mentioned that he, despite being very young, was able to change entire masses of people's perspectives on life by just his words alone. Since that was his claim to fame, it's only natural that he would have to take some time to properly formulate his words of his own life story. However, the protagonist finds it strange nonetheless. Also, if you don't have any context behind this character, it can seem like he's very cold, distant, and dismissive. In reality, he has just very low self-worth and a very little grip on social cues. He's a little surprised that anybody would want to hear his story anyway. He admits that for his whole life he has been afraid of making friends because he feels like it will interrupt his commitment to his faith. So you can already tell that even though he's lonely, his fear of making friends puts him off from socializing with people his age. In his second free time event, he tells you his life story, and you find out that he was raised in Italy after being born in Japan and adopted by an Italian father. The father used to be a bishop, so that's how he got into the church. Also, his father was the one that baptized him. He went to seminary at a very young age and became an ordained priest. He moved back to Japan in order to preach for a church in Tokyo. He has discussed the importance of helping people with addictions and people who have committed crimes. He stresses the fact that we should not view them as monsters or scary people, but just those who need to see a new perspective in order to thrive. Kenji Uehara really said reformative prison system. People have told him that his words have changed people's lives, and his big goal is to change the world with his words because his adoptive father said that he was capable of such. Despite this, he is against forcing his religion on other people, and says that if they want to follow Catholicism, it's their own choice, and that he will help them regardless of what they choose. Our protagonist is very inspired and wants to learn more about his religion the next time they hang out. Even though the story is wild from beginning to end, Kenji is still very self-conscious about the words that he's choosing to say, and he's afraid of being boring to our protagonist. However, Maeda says that he already feels like a new person after speaking to him. Kenji gets a little warmer, and you can kind of see his antisocial nature that masks itself as indifference. In his third free time event, this is the event where you can tell that you're definitely taking the hidden reborn Christian path in Danganronpa Another, because Kenji decides to invite you to his room to talk. And at first you were a little startled by his forwardness, but you decided to trust him and go anyway. His room is absolutely decked out with old Catholic relics. His windows are even stained glass. It's kind of amazing. But it begs the question, how the heck was he even able to get any of that in the school? Anyway, he tells you that the real reason he brought you to his room is because he wants to baptize you. I am not kidding. This ultimate level high school priest wants to baptize you while you guys are in the midst of a killing game. However, he makes it clear that he's not just baptizing you for the express purpose of bringing you into his religion, but he wants to consider you a friend, and this is the way that he proves to himself that your friendship is authentic, since he's never made a friend before. It's honestly kind of endearing how formal he is about everything, and even takes things such as high school friendships to a very sincere and serious degree. You ultimately agree to being baptized into this friendship, as weird as it may sound, and the funniest dialogue exchange in the game happens. You ask how they were able to get holy water into the school, and Kenji responds with simply, "Oh, it's tap water." No, as somebody who is raised Catholic, I know that ordained priests can just take any water and anoint it and make it holy water, but the comedy was still not lost on me, and I thought that it was very funny. Just letting you know that Kenji could have made it holy water if he wanted to, but also the creator of this game has come out and said that he did not actually do any research on Catholicism before he invented the character, and honestly, I think that he did pretty well with the fact that he had no prior knowledge or very little prior knowledge on Catholicism. It just made it all the more endearing and satirical, and I really liked it. After you're baptized into this friendship, Kenji is very elated. He's over the moon. He's so happy that he made his first friend, and the protagonist is surprised that it's his first friend. But again, he reiterates that in his childhood, he was really only surrounded with adults and the elderly because he was always in the church. So he never really had time to make friends, nor was he open to the idea because he was so afraid of it shaking his faith. However, you've taught him that friendship is extremely valuable, and he tells you he hopes your friendship lasts an eternity. Mind you, this is only after having 2 conversations with the man, so you kind of get a glimpse into just how lonely he is. However, once he warms up to you, he's extremely kind, caring, loyal, and just socially awkward person who wants human connection like the rest of us. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about my personal experience. I was raised with a lot of homeschooled Christian kids, and a lot of sheltered Christian kids in my youth, and I honestly have a soft spot in my heart for them because they were and are still some of the best friends that I've ever had. They taught me so much about just being authentically yourself, and the fact that they were sheltered just meant that they didn't really care what other people thought of them as long as they were having fun. That being said, they also tend to have lower self-worth and not the best grip on conventional social cues. Me being neurodivergent, I didn't really care about this because I didn't have the best grip on social cues either, but for different reasons. So we were just kind of really awkward together and it worked. However, a lot of other kids around these kids that were homeschooled or sheltered would be kind of off-put by them because they weren't like other kids in their mind, and they would either think that they were weird, really creepy, or even just cold and mean and distant. In reality, they were just really wanting human connection like the rest of us, and you can even tie this experience into just being a neurodivergent child. I've definitely had a lot of personal experiences where I just wanted to be seen like everyone else, but people were really put off by my personality because it was just fundamentally different in terms of how I processed information and how I relate information. So I completely get Kenji's need to isolate because I also felt the need to isolate when I was a child because it just felt easier than being rejected socially. Also, these sheltered fundamentalist religions are isolationist in nature, so it's almost like they create the kids that are going to isolate themselves from everybody that doesn't see eye to eye with them, or anybody that hadn't literally grown up with them their entire life. It's a vicious cycle of wanting to be alone and wanting to be wanted, and honestly, I can just kind of understand where the character is coming from. Some people have argued that there's no reason that Kenji should act this way, but again, as somebody who's seen a lot of sheltered Christian kids and also a lot of people who just decided that sheltering themselves was way easier, I totally get it. So there's also a special free time event, as there is for all characters, and in Kenji's special free time event, you and him decide that you have nothing to talk about because you're already super buddies. So you decide to just go to the gym together for some reason because apparently that makes sense. Anyway, after you two bros have sweated at the gym and really just gotten your gains on, Kenji decided that this is the best time to give you his underwear. This is something that every Danganronpa game has done once you completed all the free time events with somebody, and I think it just has ties to Japanese humor that's a little bit different from the humor here, so, I kind of think nothing of it. Anyway, after you've worked out and exchanged underwear, I guess, you decide to give him a gift of your own. And if you're a super mega Chad, you give him Helena's Sacrament on accident. Yes, you heard that right. You literally give him the nails that are used in his impending execution on the cross. Obviously, you would have no way of knowing this at this point, but yeah. He thinks that it's the best gift he's ever received, and he's absolutely elated by receiving these, nails. So I guess job well done. So, like I mentioned before, unfortunately, Kenji is one of the culprits, and he is the culprit of Trial 3, and even though this is a fan game, it's not safe from the Danganronpa 3rd trial rule. So, Kenji kills 2 people, those being Kakeru and Kanata. He did this because he viewed his motive video, which shows that Monokuma was going to kill the children in his church that he took care of if he didn't take action. He tried to only kill Kanata at first, but Kakeru walked in and sawing him doing so, so he decided to kill both of them, so that there was no witnesses. He also had to find a way to make sure that those that were still out at night didn't see what he was doing, so he knocked out Rei with a baseball bat and Tsurugi with chloroform. The reason he didn't get away with this is because Tsurugi had put glow-in-the-dark paint on the back of his hand as he was drugging her with the chloroform. She said in the trial that she had a bunch of precautions like this in order for the students to know who killed her in the event that she ever were to die. Everyone knows that in every Trial 3 in Danganronpa, there is a breakdown. And Kenji's honestly did not disappoint. I honestly think it's even more impactful if you do all of his free time events, because you can see him confiding in our protagonist as his only friend, and then that goes to calling him a talentless bastard when he's up against the wall. Kenji absolutely loses his mind on Main. He goes from somebody who's gentle but stoic and doesn't really react to his surroundings, even when they get bad, to somebody who's cursing everybody out and throwing accusations everywhere. I just think this juxtaposition is very powerful, and I would compare it to Celestia Ludenberg in the fact that she's completely fine until she is not, and then when she's finally found out, she's suddenly fine again. Which, for a character like Kenji, really works. I mean, he's a priest, and he realized that he has just committed one of the worst mortal sins that you can if sins were ever to be ranked. Kenji really didn't have that many social connections with anybody that wasn't an elderly or an adult person, so he really cared about those kids, and he thought they were still so young and they didn't deserve to die. He was willing to sacrifice not only his life, but everybody else's in the killing game, and his eternity in heaven, just to make sure those kids were safe. No matter how you really want to take that, it shows how much he cares, and it shows how much he values the little social connection that he does have. Ultimately, sadly, Monokuma reveals that the kids were dead the whole time, so his sacrifice and the potential sacrifices of others were ultimately in vain. Knowing that, he returns completely to his stoic self, the only readable emotion being complete somber and brokenness. It's honestly really sad to watch, no matter how weak or strong you think the motive is, and here's where I'm going to get a little bit dicey. I don't like the execution. So, it starts with Kenji having to carry his cross and pretty much just being crucified just like Jesus Christ was, even with the little bears dressed as Roman soldiers and a bunch of little bear citizens watching him be crucified and reacting as an audience. Kenji even gets a crown of thorns on his head just like Jesus. So a lot of religious people would consider this blasphemous, but I think it's befitting of his character. Danganronpa has never gotten anywhere without being a little controversial, and I think that this ties in the special event gift in just the right way and makes it all more meaningful. I would have loved the execution to have stopped there, but it didn't. We needed to add some Mikan Tsumiki Danganronpa bullshit. One of the Roman Monokumas then presses a big red button which shoots the cross into space like a rocket. However, Kenji doesn't suffocate in space or get crushed by the space pressure or what have you like some other characters that we've seen. No, he flies in the sky for a bit and then plummets to the ground. Now, I understand the symbolism. Kenji fell from grace. Jesus was able to rise again and go to heaven, but Kenji just barely fell short. He was not able to live up to the one person he idolized the most, and his death was humiliating because of it. While I understand the symbolism of that, and I think that it was a really good idea in theory, the execution just kind of makes it look whack. I don't know. I'd love to hear your guys' opinion on this execution in the comments section. Do you think that it hits home, or do you think that it could have been done more tactfully? Hell, how would you have executed the character? Overall, I think Kenji is a really interesting character. He's my favorite from the Danganronpa Another series, and that's saying a lot, because the fan games are truly fantastic, and I highly recommend you play them if you haven't yet. Seriously, it looks like they have a lot of work and love and care put into them, and it's just really authentic to the Danganronpa experience if you ask me, while it gets and is allowed to get a little bit darker, where the main series games aren't really allowed to because they still need to, sell well and not get as censored, if you know what I mean. But the first time that I saw a Danganronpa Another execution, I literally, it felt like the first time I saw a main series execution, like that pit in your stomach. And it was kind of like a train crash in the fact that, you didn't want to keep looking, but you didn't want to look away. It was just really that impactful, and they did a really good job on those fan games. Anyway, I just feel like this character doesn't get enough love, and I feel like nobody's really cared enough to look into the Danganronpa Another characters enough, especially this one. So I thought I'd just make a little analysis video. Thank you for watching.